Okay, starting off with a Diamond 5 Plat 1 Widowmaker player. Additional info, I would like the review to be focused on Widow and Tracer parts. I constantly bounce between Plat and Diamond, however I peaked Masters in Season 4. I feel like I struggle with inconsistency and some positioning here and there. You swap between a lot of heroes on this VOD, but I think unless it's a quite a small amount of time, I am going to just prioritize Widow for this VOD. I know you're asking for both, but I feel like Tracer has been a difficult hero to play this season. Not due to her own faults, but just to how survivable some heroes have been. So unless she's played in like a full dive, which you just can't really rely on in ranked, it's quite tricky to find value on her. So I think I'll favor the Widowmaker in this. Also, they are two very different heroes, like almost polar opposites. So not the two easiest ones to draw comparisons between and try and find overlapping inconsistencies. So we'll try and focus just on the Widowmaker for this one, unless it's quite a small amount of time. But to just give some initial thoughts from what I can see from this matchup is that you're not going to have a heap of peel besides this Mercy. And in terms of how this is going to play out, I think it's going to be key that you're not letting these two force you out of positions. Excuse my handwriting. Force you out of positions. You can't even read that. Because as spam heroes, it's not like they're trying to kill you. It's not like they're particularly threatening to you, except for the threat of Hanzo's one-shot. But as long as you're not actively taking a duel where he has a Sonic, it is easier to take the 1v1 against him. Similarly, if you're ever being forced out of positions to rotate, and I'll just take a bird's eye view to sort of explain this. Let's say you're holding this sideline that you're currently holding, right? If you're ever being forced out to make this rotation back here, you're letting, while in the time that this is happening, you're most likely going to see them take an equal amount of space on the sidelines you are holding, which could be Zaya getting from here to here, in which case the Ana no longer has to play back in these sorts of areas, but can now press up to play on this corner. Or even rotate with her Zaya and play on this while the Zaya continues to press cart, right? And the same is going to be said about their Pharah. Like if their Pharah and Hanzo are able to effectively spam out this zone, just throw heaps of damage onto this area, then in the time that you're rotating out here, they're going to be able to take space to then be able to pressure you out here. And it's going to be really hard to regain that foothold because you don't have someone else supporting you, besides perhaps the Ana. The Jungle Queen is going to be worried about contesting point and maintaining space for you. And the Genji can be diving the Hanzo to a degree, but more likely he's going to be focused on pressuring out the Ana or punishing any positioning mistakes from the Mercy if you don't do it first. And I would think for the most part, she will stick to the Genji unless the Genji goes in really aggressive positions. Then I think she may default to you or just straight up force a tank difference. So those are my initial thoughts, which is going to require you to be either proactive or take quite a neutral position to begin with and then push advantages when you find them. You know, you hit a shot, then you like continue to aggress, whether that's a body shot or a headshot. Just something that whenever they take aggression, if you're not actively forcing that aggression back the other direction, then it's going to be really easy for them to spam you out and force either the Mercy to come peel for you or the Ana to come peel for you or the Mercy to come peel for you, which is going to direct resources to the wrong place, and it's going to allow their Pharah Mercy to buy heaps of space for them to walk onto your tank. So if we're ever seeing sort of a misplay or a mismatch in terms of their Zaya's just allowed to walk, that it's probably due to the space that we are not holding because the Pharomercy are doing a better job of forcing us out, or that we're letting the Ana and the Hanzo play in free positions. So those are the main things I'm sort of looking at just off the bat in terms of a matchup against team comps. Obviously, this position is not bad to start off with. Circuit Royale, very common for a Widowmaker duel, so you'd be checking your corners for that. I just want to note, and I think it's not a bad job here, but care for how many angles you're peeking at any given moment. It's really key, and if you watch, it's quite old now, and obviously Overwatch 1 can be a little dated, but the Overwatch League Grand Finals between Shock and Seoul, I can't remember what year that was, maybe 2021, that Arns versus Fitz matchup in the sniper duel, sniper team composition meta is just insane. And you'll see the best snipers in the world are really good at isolating the angles they're exposed to the one that they're aiming down, which is this. So if she was to walk out the spawn door, you'd have that covered. But if she was to walk out, say here, and just grapple across the ground here, then we have to make a huge adjustment to get our cursor down to here. Likewise, there'd be an easy opportunity to headshot you if we were to just jump shot like this. Genji is covering it nicely, but if we were to do something like this, I'm not exactly sure where the skybox comes into play. It's pretty close to this. It just opens some bad opportunities. And same for a grapple shot that ends you up in the air up here. Obviously, that's hard to account for in every given situation, but just be careful about how much you're exposing yourself to these angles. Yeah. Nice, you check that. Rotating backwards. This is okay. And a small difference, but make sure you're utilizing your cover well in terms of the same thing I'm talking about, in terms of limiting how many angles you're exposed to. If we use this screenshot as an example, I know they don't have a Widow, but the same goes for a Hanzo, to be able to peek here, to be able to peek up here, to be able to peek here. Obviously, if the Junker Queen wasn't where she is, and she's about to not peek because she's quite low, then that doorway as well. So yeah, just be careful about that. You can use the cover to cut off the doorway perhaps by sitting here, because you're not, where you're aiming right now isn't exclusively reached by where we are. If it was like right on this Ana, then maybe it would be. But even still, it's sort of like you can still hit this angle like that and be elongating, or even better like this, and be really minimizing the angle that they have to shoot you. Obviously, because of the map geometry, favoring the wall to your left is better in terms of the aggressive angle they have to take to see you. But just note your cover usage in this current moment. It's quite out in the open and exposed. Genji comes up with a nice double though, so this is going to clean up the first fight. I think this is quite aggressive. I know they don't have any dive threats, so you're not particularly, you don't have to be too conservative with your grapple usage. But I think to do something like this, you actually need to drop and use your grapple to propel yourself upwards, because you need to give your first shot time against this Pharah to be in the air. So it's really hard for it to actually hit a direct on you, because I think a more switched on Pharah player will just see you and hit a direct, and with a damage boost, that might even be a one-shot as Widow's 175 HP, I'm not entirely sure. It'll be close. But just because you hit the grapple from like a pretty level high ground, you might get that like skip across the ground, but that's about all you get. And I think you have, more realistically, I think you only have that one shot. to try and make a play here. Otherwise, you just get walked on. I think it's lucky that we're getting such a hard pocket from this Mercy. I think you get punished otherwise. And if you're playing like this because you're aware of that pocket, then that's totally fine, but I'm just saying be aware of it. I checked a couple of shots there. You're kicking yourself in the foot with your own movement here, I think. Doing all this spamming, like... Is the Hanzo actively shooting at us? Sort of. I think he's trying to find us, but I don't think you needed to panic there. I think you could have... I think the play, if you wanted to go for that shot, was just to chill, take your time, but better yet, I think you rotate out and you maintain your space because, again, you have to set and plant yourself against these spam comps to make sure that anytime they take an aggressive stance against you, you are able to hit your shot. Right now, you got no chance of hitting a shot. And I know you just killed the Pharaoh, but the same principle stands with even Zarya right clicks or Hanzo spam. Probably get the res here though, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, see, much better. You sort of planted yourself. You still have a sort of habit of crouch ADing every time you shoot, which I know Widows sort of have their ticks or whatever that they do when they line up shots. But see, that was a lot better, I thought. I know you didn't hit the shots, but I think that this is better mechanics of taking shots. You still... Both shots are sort of just to the right and you're pressing A as you're doing it. So I think you're still sort of trying to compensate. You should never, like, some heroes, they have to rely on, obviously, movement and aim sort of coexist with each other and they directly influence each other. But I think that's not the case with Widow. I think unless you're doing a grapple B-hop shot or something like that, or in a Widow 1v1 where you sort of have to jiggle peek and correctly time crouch with the charge, I think it's unnecessary to have movement be incorporated into your aim. I think better off break the bad habit and just rely solely on your mouse aim. Go for a grapple shot. It's good. Keep in mind, grapple will be a really good tool to have available to you if the Pharaoh wants to push you, because being up in the air is going to make it a lot harder for her to hit damage shots on you. Also, if we don't have any like direct dive threats, we can just be throwing Venom Mine into the middle of fights, or like close to the middle of fights, for just free ult charge. Unfortunate. You got the second shot though, this is good. Nice shot. Nice body shot. Ooh, nice headshot. We hear the Hanzo over here. Oh, we just rushed it a little bit. I think that was a good anticipation of where she should have been, though. I think she messed up her conk. Yeah. Unfortunate. And I think this sort of like crouch running away stuff is the sort of thing you need to do if you're taking pot shots at another Widow or taking a 1v1, right? It makes sense, but if there's no threats to you snipe-wise, I don't think it's needed, and I think it's a bad habit to develop. There you go, you know you're doing your job right. Yep, there you go, they're sick of you. Skip ahead a little bit. I wish there was a Widow, because I think that that's a better test, not just in the Widow 1v1, but how you play against a Widow. Right now you're not really having to... The Hanzo hasn't really posed enough of a threat for you to position in ways where you're utilizing cover to control LOS of different people. And I think that's a pretty big test of Widowmaker as a whole. But even like right now, right? Again, okay if you're playing with this because you're not scared. One, because they don't have a Widow, but two, you're not scared of the Hanzo because he hasn't scared you yet. But just note, whenever you're targeting someone, how out in the open you are. Like going for this Widow, going for this Pharaoh, right? You can be hard sitting on this pillar and controlling it so that she is the only one able to do damage with you. Because even an Ana getting a body shot on you right now probably makes you one-tappable for the Pharaoh. So it is still important, and better players will look to just put in little bits of damage here and there instead of, like, the Ana will know to put one shot in and then maybe play a life more when you know where a position is or you've got it marked, right? Better players will look and they will hit these shots. So it's best that you don't develop any bad habits based off bad players. But just like while you're lining this shot up, right, like especially on this little like ledge bit as well, you're even raised higher than this bit of cover right here, which makes you exposed to anyone on cart. And actually, does your sort of movement mess up? Yeah, you're giving yourself more things to have to think about by compensating your aim. It's fine to do flicks, but like try flicking without having to compensate for your AD crouch spamming. I want to see how he uses this ultimate. I think you probably know in yourself that this is too early and it's a sort of random, like can't sit still habit of Widowmaker players. You gotta be... It's really good at, one, giving you an advantage in duels, right? So if there were a Widow, it'd be a great use of it there. Perhaps a little later, like right now, right? And then you get to keep that extra 20% or whatever that's already gone. But the other thing it's good at is denying aggression, right? Because if they're trying to close the gap onto you specifically, it gives you information on like how they're trying to close the gap, how they're trying to get closest to you without playing out in the open and things like that. So I think it can be quite good. And even as an assist tool for the rest of your team, even if it's not selfish, giving them information, right? If your queen wants to know exactly where they are, can now just jump around the corner and ult, right? And get them all caught off guard or something like that, right? Or Ashe can just throw a dynamite over the top of the cover and get a huge amount of ult charge without ever having to peek them. But like, so you haven't like been in a position to take a shot or been under threat at all in this whole time, and more than half of it is gone, right? And it's like, maybe if we popped it now, then we could start to see, like, we know there's one person on cart based on what the scoreboard is telling us. So we can be like, okay, I want to see who is on cart, and then I'm going to rotate down these stairs because I can see where cart is, and then I'll take a shot on whoever is on there. But then you get to like the point where you're about to take the shot or about to look for it, and then you can infrasight it, right? You can do it a little bit before that if you're worried about the audio of the ult, giving away the fact that you might peek this angle. But nonetheless, we got to use like 2 shots there in the ult in the last like 25 at best % of the ult. That's tempted the jump shot. Need some health though. We got some. Why did we miss this shot? Just rushed it a little bit. Took your time and hit that one. Nice. Unlucky. Nice. And I think I want to watch it in a bit slow-mo. There was no crouch on that one, and you were just holding A the whole time. So when your movement is predictable, which can be the same as standing still, you're actually really good at hitting the shots. And you miss that one, body shot, miss, because you're doing this like weird crouch AD spamming. So I think this is a bad habit, and sometimes it can be a habit, it can be a case of you actually need to unbind control, or whatever your crouch key is, so that you don't do it and you actually force yourself to shoot without crouching. Now I want you to take a wide angle. Forced him out. You forced out your threats. I would really want to see you come out here and look for a pick this way. I would have wanted to see it from the get-go, but I get that you were maybe looking for a safer angle in here. But now it's like, okay, something needs to change. So we need to make a play, otherwise we're not going to be able to sort of do this. And it's too... This is the same sort of thing in terms of getting spammed out and then having to rotate when you should be finding value. Is that if you come out here and then you look for a shot, you don't hit it, and then you get damaged because you're really close and you're like grouped up with your team, then you're going to be running back to your supports for healing or running backwards out here to get away in the time that you should be looking for picks or looking for shots. And that's what I was trying to get at earlier, but never really alluded to because they didn't do a great job of it. But pressuring you out because you take too aggressive or too close of an angle initially can force you to lose the opportunity to get a shot when it is time to find some heads. Zaya's trolling our shots, or trolling our aim at the moment. Yeah, you're shooting yourself in the foot here, like your movement just as you're taking these shots. That one that you shot before you did your movement. That one you didn't move at all, and I think you were sort of expecting to, so it was to the right. That one was close. That was the best one yet. You planted your feet and just missed ahead. And then you did a weird crouch in that one. Unfortunate. I felt like you were going to swap after that death and on to third, but glad to see we stuck it out. Again, I think you know that this is way too early of an ult. Let's see when you're finally in a position to use it. And there's about 1/3 of it left. And I get you want to know, like you get to walk up here free of mind because you know there's no threats up here, but it's still a waste of an ultimate. It's especially good when their tank is looking to go aggressive and their supports are scared to push with them because they're not sure where you are. Nice. Now where are we going to set up here? A little bit of practice with Ana's hitbox, I think. He's a tricky one to hit. The Zaya has an issue with you though, she's grabbed you every time. And this is a sort of an example of taking too aggressive of an angle, right? And it's aggressive not in how far forward it is, right? Like your team is playing this far forward. And it'd be great if your Ashe was playing somewhere else, but like playing somewhere more like here, right? Where you can control the angle, they can't get on you easily, and it's playing long distance from angles. If the Zaya gets to the corner that she gets at and you want to outstretch, then you play out here and you like really lengthen out and you continue to control LOS of who can actually see you at any given time. Because out here, everyone can see you. There's no walls for you to hide behind. It's one Reaper teleport, and it was, you know, if you hit the shot, then that's great, but there's still a Tracer on top of you, and you're going to be rotating away and letting their backline walk in for free, right? So you got to do a really good job, because you think about it, if you were playing the Widow 1v1, that would have been a really dangerous spot to be, right? And unless their Widow picks you, their backline is scared, right? This is essentially the same thing. Their Tracer and Reaper have essentially picked you, right? They have forced you out, and now it's safe for their backline to walk up. And this is a key part of playing Widow. That's a bit cursed. Is that you need to know when to take your aggressive moments based on the enemy's movements. If they move forward, you move backwards. If they move backwards, you move forward. But you can't be staying as long as you're staying, because you're being forced to rotate in moments when you should be still in position to shoot this Ana. Like if this Xayah is in a position where she wants to force this fight on cart, wants to walk on your Ana and then extend past this corner and cut a LOS of her supports, you need to be in a position to punish their supports for trying to keep up with her, or punish the Xayah for being out of LOS, right? Two different options, which is basically holding this angle and denying the supports, or holding this angle and punishing the Xayah, the overextended enemy. I hope that makes sense. That's the main point that I'm trying to get across, because I think it's a big point of focus in this. When there's not a Widow 1v1, you don't get like picked, you don't trade kills, their Widow or your Widow, but you do constantly have resources, be it dive, be it just a flanker like Tracer, constantly being thrown at you to force you to rotate and force you to play more passively, which essentially accomplishes the same thing. You're on Tracer now. I don't really want to spend give you too much to think about. Doesn't look like we're playing it on attack. We can go for Tracer. And you spend a lot of time on Tracer as well, so I can't even, like, I don't even really want to just give you like a little note based on like a small snippet that you swap to her to. I'm assuming the Bastion and Cassidy are overtime flexes. So we get a little desperate for the win. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that's sort of my main takes on the Widowmaker. On the Widowmaker. I don't want to overload you, like I say, and give you notes for Tracer as well, because she's an entirely different hero. It's not even remotely similar. There's not going to be any sort of crossover that I can give you between the two. Except for perhaps movement and aim based on what I saw from the Widow, but I think that's more of a twitch that a lot of Widow players have in terms of bad habits that they develop that they need to do when they aim, when in actuality minimizing how much you have to think about at any given point is the better thing. So yeah, definitely think about that. Think about, in essence, how you rotate through the map when you get out, because you need to be making sure you're rotating at opportunities for you, not letting them force you out, because if they are, then you're probably missing out on key moments of value in the fight. And then as well as just identifying your matchups, sort of recognizing what we talked about at the start, and then and also using cover to control LOS a little bit better. Think about at any given moment how many different angles you're exposing yourself to at once. A good habit is to just play games as if there is a Widow, and a Hanzo should essentially be pretty similar in terms of being a one-shot or long-range snipe, the same as a charged Sojourn or a Ashe with a pocket would be. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. Please let me know if there's any questions that you have, or anything needs more explaining. Happy to do so, and all the best with your games.